All right. Schlemizel, Schlemazel, Shabluzu, Shablazu. Welcome back to the Elk Lodge podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Brisky, joined by our beautiful other host.
I'm Christine Donley. We don't normally do last names.
No,
That's
I don't know. I
kinda
just kind of
crazy.
freestyled that. As always, the Elk Lodge is brought to you by Hexa Coffee. That's Hexe Coffee.
That's good. That's a name drop we're more comfortable with around this house. It's our favorite. We drink it all the time. We love it. We kind of can't keep it in the cupboards very long.
I know, it's hard to keep it in stock.
This is actually not it. We're forging because we're out. Again, we got to order. We got to use our own deal.
That's right. If you go to hexacoffee.com, again, that's Hexe coffee.com, and use the promo code ELK, you're going to get 10% off of your purchase. And you can buy a whole bunch of this shit. And good luck keeping it in that cupboard because you're going to drink it fast.
Don't drink tea like a bitch.
That's right. Don't be a bitch.
I'm kidding.
Drink coffee like a real fucking person.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Tough guys.
Cheers on our little bitch drinks here.
So today,
yeah, who's on the show today?
Well, it's not today. We had our buddy Josh Weis on, which I should say my buddy. He's a new friend of yours.
Sure, yeah, I had not met him.
We did actually go to high school together collectively, so you've passed by him, I think. But a buddy that I kind of connected with in college and haven't spoken to or like kept in touch with very well over the years. So it was cool. It's cool to catch up and get to introduce you and have some fun.
Full disclosure, we haven't filmed the episode yet, actually.
This
so we're
is the forgiest ad we've ever run. How is my life?
This is bullshit. It's all fake. It's all...
It's so hot. It's so hot in here.
So enjoy the show. I hope we did.
I'm sure we had fun. Hey, man.
All right. Let's get it popping, y'all.
So, Josh, this is Paul. Paul, this is Josh.
Josh, nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you as well. Can you all hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
You're great.
You're coming in loud and clear.
Perfect.
Well,
Thank you,
Thanks
for having me.
Are you kidding?
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you could, make some time to spare. Rep your Dare shirt. That's awesome.
Love the Dare shirt.
Yeah, gotta keep the kids aware, you know?
Right.
It's the first
step. Gotta spread the word.
First step in prevention.
You know, it was funny. I was thinking about the other day. It was like, you know, Dare was meant to be this drug prevention thing, but really all they did was tell me where to buy drugs, what the names were, what the effects were, what type of people to look for when you want to buy it.
Right.
But then they also set unrealistic expectations that it was going to be given to me for free. You know,
you never thought about the hidden cost of drug
it on
use.
you. Yeah, they made it seem like drug dealers they want you to take drugs so badly they'll just give it to you. They'll trick you even.
Offer you candy and just put you in the van, let you try all sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah.
False information on that one, you know?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lie.
I have my Dare shirt too. There's something about it that just feels like a little bit sassy when I put that shirt on. I hope you get the same.
But it's
feeling.
also of a generation. I don't think they're still doing Dare for kids.
No, definitely not. Mine's circa 1994, and it has the year on it. You know,
it's very of the times.
Do you have the original black one?
I have a black one. Yeah, but it's random. I don't know how I have it. It's from a random school in San Diego. I don't remember.
What was the lion's name? Wasn't there a lion
Leo.
mascot?
It's Leo the lion.
Leo.
I mean, it would have to be.
He was strong and straight edge.
Yeah.
He was cool.
Straight edge. Was that born from the Reagan administration?
Kind of.
Yeah. Leo?
No, just Dare in general.
Leo, that's Nancy Reagan's whole thing was Leo
Her whole
the lion.
claim to fame.
Leo's your friend that you can rely on to pick you up from the bar if you're too drunk.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
The DD. Always.
Yeah, always.
Always.
It's always
forever.
down to DD.
Yeah, he's stuck in that zone. He's it's like being stuck in the friend zone.
You want a Leo in your life.
You need one, yeah.
It's like when your wife gets pregnant and then you just have, she's not drinking. But anytime you go anywhere, you've got to ride.
That's true.
It's kind of nice.
She becomes like a lion.
Yeah.
Wait,
reliable like a
Josh,
lion.
Okay, we went to the same high school, Deerfield High School. You graduated 05?
2005, yeah.
Beautiful. We're
Fine
08.
year, great year. Yeah.
What
it was a great year as well.
What elementary school and middle school did you go to?
I grew up in Kipling. I grew up going to Kipling and then Shepherd.
Gotcha.
So
You
Kipling,
lived
yeah.
right by Shepherd too.
yeah, I lived like 500 feet from Shepherd, and at
Okay.
the time, I broke the record for most tardies in a year, with like 50 something.
That's so
Because
funny.
I would get out of bed like 5 minutes before the bell and be like, I'm not going to be late.
Right.
And then I was always late.
You felt
know?
like you had room for error that apparently
Yeah.
you didn't quite have.
Yeah. I was also one of those kids that stayed up till like 2 a.m. just like doing nothing, just either like gaming or
Yeah.
this was like right around the America Online days. So,
right.
big into the instant, big into the AIM chat.
Right. And
Big
that
into the
LimeWire,
chat.
getting those LimeWire downloads
Those
going.
little like
Yeah.
instant message notification sounds were like
Yeah.
the first of it. They were the beginning of what got us all hooked to,
It's true.
That was
the
it.
gram and everything that followed after,
Yeah. And then right before you go to school, you leave like a really emo away message, like see you in class, maybe not. And then just like leave it up. For
If I make
interpretation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Were you
God.
at Shepherd when like some kids, maybe it was you, some kids like destroyed, some kids like vandalized
They
Shepherd really
they
bad and it was
vandalized.
like a big deal, talk of the town. Do you
I don't
remember
really
that?
remember
I was in 5th grade, but my brother was a student there.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I know the kid who did it. But what ended up happening was like when the push came to shove and the police like wanted to like press charges, his parents were like, no, he was home that night. And it's like, like what are they going to do otherwise? Like, so I don't really know if it was like a fingerprint thing. I think it was just like they were just relying on the old rumor mill,
Right.
waiting for that like one kid to break from fear.
Mm-hmm.
But it never really happened.
I mean, that's
Damn,
how
shout
the
out to
police
that
department
kid.
works in that town. It's just,
Yeah.
they have no problems, no qualms with like intimidating children.
And it's like all they
Yeah.
got. It's all they got is intimidating children.
That's the teenagers are the scoundrels of the
But
town.
a kid did steal my iPod iPod. Sorry. When I worked at the Bannockburn Club, I worked like in the cafe at the Bannockburn Club, and some kid stole my iPod, and I knew he stole it, but he wouldn't admit to it. And like, I was like, I know you took my iPod. Like, you have to give it back. And yeah, I told on him, and then it was like they were like threatening, like we're gonna involve the police, and he's like, I'll give it back, and it worked.
Yep.
It worked.
That's how you do it.
You know,
Which generation iPod was it? Was it
It's a
color
wheel.
yet, or was it the one with the wheel?
it was with the
That
wheel.
was like-
it was a wheel.
Oh,
one.
I never
that's-
had that
that's the-
one. Well, I
the
guess
wheel
I
and the
did,
4
but I
buttons
had the
is the
Nano
first
with that
generation.
one.
The wheel is Gen 1.
The wheel. Well, there's the wheel, but then they had the 4 buttons along the top, the 4 circles.
Oh,
Then the second generation was just the wheel with the button in the middle.
I think that was
Yeah.
that one. I think it was the wheel, but that was the only, and the button in
Yeah.
the middle.
This is like,
Yeah.
this truly ages me because I actually remember bringing a Discman before that came into my life, like on the bus and
Yeah.
listening to that a lot, which is
Well,
such a timestamp.
I had the mini disc player, so you could put it was like 500 hours worth of music.
Wow.
But in order to get it onto the mini disc, you had to just play a playlist, and it recorded a playlist, not like straight. So before I leave my house or something, I'd like start the playlist, push record, and then do something for like 500 hours or
Whoa.
something like
So
stupid.
it had to transfer over in like real time. Like,
Yeah, in
if
real
you want a
time. There's no
3-minute
fast
song,
forward.
it's going to take 3 minutes to get it on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. But you could you didn't have to have the volume. It was just through the program. So sometimes you could do it and go to bed.
Right. Okay.
And then put on your playlist, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and you got 6 hours of just jams. But you couldn't skip songs sometimes. So you just have to fast forward and be like, all right, I'm going to fast forward 48 minutes. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be Linkin Park, but you're not but you're not fully sure.
You never know. Is it Linkin Park? Is it Limp Bizkit? What's it going to be?
Yeah. Yep. And then it's Sum 41 and you're still listening.
Yeah.
Oh my
Hey, you're still
gosh.
happy,
Yeah.
Wow.
we played a bunch of throwback, Sum 41 angsty, our angsty teen phase music recently in the car. It was so much fun. I hadn't thought of so many of these songs in forever.
I know. So many came up and we were like, oh yeah, lit.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
My
I'm
Own Worst
singing every
Enemy.
word. I'm singing every word.
Yeah.
I forgot about this song. I was singing
I
every
love that
You
about
know-
music, though. How you just no matter how long, once it starts, the words come back, and you just know it. If you know music,
Oh my-
it's in there.
Oh my God. It's funny because I literally just put on Blink 182, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket at the gym 2 days ago. And I was like, why do I know like every lyric to every song?
Yeah, it's in there.
And like, why am I still tearing up over my 8th grade girlfriend? Like, why is this like, you know?
You know what? You've got a big heart. That's why, Josh.
You're a lover.
You remember like not only the words, but you like remember how you feel like in the moment when you heard that song.
100%.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. And yeah, it's you're right. Like the same emotional response can so easily be triggered. Like if you don't realize what's happening.
Yeah, there's so much value with music about not just what you think about the song, but where you were in your life when you heard it. It matters so much. Like I would listen to Bob Marley on vacations. Like we'd go to Florida and be like, Bob Marley. It's like the whole time, like I'm on vacation. And so now every time I hear Bob Marley, like I'm on vacation. Like it's just nice and just feels good, you know? It makes such a difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
Have you ever seen that video of like this? It's this old black guy who's like has dementia and they like play him songs from his childhood and he like comes back. He's like, oh wow. Like in the beginning he's like weird and shaky and can't talk. And then they play him this song and he goes like, oh, I remember this song. I love this song. Like it's fascinating.
I've seen that with like an old lady they started playing like her former, like she was a ballerina. What are the words? Ballerina. And they like played these songs and she kind of like did all the hand gestures for him right away.
Oh,
like she just could remember the movements because of that piece of music. It is cool.
That's a hot tip though. I feel like if I want to like preemptively fight dementia, I should just like play the same song over and over again when like I put away my keys somewhere.
There you go.
You know?
Right.
So it's like, where's the keys? Oh, play that one song.
Right,
It'll help me like jog my memory.
Got it. It's in my third drawer.
Right. And also like when we're 90 and we're like that guy, like our grandkids are going to play like Blink-182 and be like, oh, Grandpa, he's back.
Like,
Grandpa, you're back.
Also, you're like too Trumpy right now when you do like the impersonation of like somebody who's like not fully able-bodied. Like.
No, he was an old man.
I know.
And he was like this. And then
it's too soon.
He's just being
it's
frail.
Too soon.
He's frail, you know.
He's frail.
They're small. You got to get smaller.
You got a hunch, I guess.
Look, I'm not making fun of the guy.
Okay, good.
Scientifically, it's accurate that you shrink. Your ears get bigger, your nose gets bigger, and then you just shrink.
Your nose and your ears, they never stop growing. Is that right?
They never stop growing.
Just
I think your feet are supposed to be the same way or something. I don't know.
My
but
feet have been like the
weird.
same size since I stopped growing in 7th grade. Well, since I stopped getting taller.
I don't know if I stopped growing or not. When I saw Tommy the other weekend, he was like, I think you're taller. I was like, fuck, I don't know, man.
What shoes were you wearing?
I was wearing Nikes, and I normally wear no shoes. And so I thought it might have been that. It might have been that extra inch.
I've got like 2-3 pairs of shoes that give me a good like inch. So I'm like, sometimes like if I'm like, I just want to appear taller, I'll put them on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
Have you ever been like George Costanza and all that? Ever met somebody and then you like can't take off the shoes after that?
Keep the shoes
wow,
going.
that's a great question. No, I have not. Thankfully, that would be terrible.
Yeah, I don't want to see you in a pickle like that. Oh my gosh! So what else is going on? I mean, it's so Josh and I obviously we went to high school together, but like I didn't know Josh really in high school at all.
No.
Our older siblings knew each other, but we kind of only became friends really in college at the University of Arizona.
So how did that work?
Neat.
You went there. You knew of each other. And so like how did that
we
work?
had we had a mutual friend.
We met through a friend that was like Christina and I both became friends with like a lot of Tucson locals. So like University of Arizona in Tucson. And it's really weird because the personality of like a lot of the Tucson local kids was very similar to like people in Chicago. There was like a weird, like it was like a very weird familiar vibe that you got from people and like the way they speak and communicate, interact with each other. So like naturally, like I got along very well with anybody like who like lived in Tucson. And then I met her roommate Matt through my good buddy Krantz. And then that was it. Then we became friends. Like, oh yeah, Christine went to Deerfield. And I was like, oh, what do you know?
Yeah, small world moment for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So in that moment, you weren't like, I remember you, or it was just like, nice to meet you. We went to the same high school.
Purely kind of coincidental. Yeah. And Matt was kind of like, there was one class, it was my freshman year. It was the only class I got a C in. It was my astronomy class. And I was just like not good at it. But I made the most friends in that class out of like any college course. And I met Matt in that class and he kind of like adopted me. Like I would say he just sort of, was just so like inviting into his life, you know, like knew I didn't know that many people, and I ended up living with him. And then, yeah, Josh was such good friends with him that it just was all meant to be. And then I would say the same. It was like immediately you felt familiar to me, like just a reminder of home. Like you just had the Chicago spirit. We watched sports a lot. Like I just kind of remember trekking to your place a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with this Chicago spirit. Like you meet people from Chicago, there's just like, even if you don't know they're from Chicago, they're just easy to talk to because, and then you put it together later. But I can't quite put my finger on like what is Chicago-ness in a person.
It's like a personality, not a trait, but like a personality framework almost. You know what I mean? Like people fit their personality.
What are the traits?
I mean, it's like a love for sports. It's a love for food. It's this sense of humor. It's all sorts of things.
Yeah, it could be in the humor.
I would say depending on where you're from, like typically you'll trust people before you distrust them. Other parts of the country, there's like a built-in, like, I've got to like feel this person out first. Most of the time when I meet people from Chicago, it's like, oh, hey, we get to know each other. We're open about it. And then you wait to see if somebody burns you. And then at that point you can cancel them.
That's cool.
Deal. You know, I guess maybe that's it. I don't know.
I like it
Could
though.
be
We
part
have
of
like
that.
a little bit of the Midwest hospitality still in there.
Yeah.
Right. And
I
we're
think so.
we're not New York, right? We don't have this like pessimism or like that, you know, New York has this like bluntness about it, you know. But we're not like the South where we're like super polite either. I don't know. I've never really thought about this. I'm just trying to think like, but yeah, maybe it's also the humor. There's like a
confidence, I think. I would say. Yeah, if I had to hone in, like, I don't know, Chicago people aren't like meek, you know? I don't know.
True.
They're just
Not me.
There's a loyalty thing too. We love our city. We love like our family and friends, you know.
See, we can't speak to that because we've never gone back. We're like traders.
But we never
gone
lived
back?
back. We never lived in Chicago.
there. Neither of us have.
Yeah. I don't know downtown
right.
Chicago from anywhere. Like people are like, I live in Wicker Park. I don't know.
Bad. I
don't know what that is.
But do you visit? Do you guys ever visit?
Sure. Yeah. We visit and we go downtown. We hang with friends. But geographically, I have no concept of where I am or like neighborhoods or anything.
That makes
a
sense.
sad little string. It's just a gentle little string that could be snapped. No, I'm kidding.
You're in Chicago right now?
I'm in Chicago right now. I'm in Logan Square. So
cool. We have friends there.
We
Been there.
kind of know where that is.
I've been there. I was told I was there.
Yeah. There you go. And like I lived in Arizona after I finished school for like 4 or 5 years. So I had the thing where I moved back in my 20s and I was like, I don't know the city. Like I was like, I know I know like the name of a few neighborhoods, but it was just like funny. I had to like learn it piece by piece. But then I lived in the Loop, which is like the center of like kind of most things, and you like can get to any line from there. So that made it a little easier because I had to get on like every different possible train route, like line to go to different neighborhoods, and you just kind of figured it out. And driving helps too. When you have like a car and you drive everywhere, you have to like learn the streets and neighborhoods. Otherwise, it's just like a pain in the ass.
Right. Yeah.
So that was it. But it took a few years. You know, Tucson's easy. It's like you just look up and see the foothills, and you're like, I know where I'm at right now. There's a giant mountain that's in the same spot.
Right. Maybe the mountains, like, because I picked up on LA geography pretty quickly, but there's mountains to kind of, there's like large things to base off where you're at. Whereas Chicago, you don't know where you're facing.
I picked up LA geography quickly, but
you've only been here like a year.
I mean, a year.
Well, okay. When I say quickly, I mean like 2 years. Because I'm bad at geography.
I'm good at geography, and it normally does not take me very long to get like oriented. But I mean, I still kind of look up directions everywhere I go.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know.
I do also, but I can usually find my way home.
Yeah,
but I've been here longer.
But yeah, the mountains do help. I think I love that about Tucson. You can always find your way.
You can always find your way. So
you like being in Chicago, though?
I love it. I love it here. Like I got my family here, got a lot of friends I grew up with, and then it's just like, as you know, being in a bigger city, like there's always something to do. Almost to the point where maybe there's like, I'm always too busy, you know, like there's not enough time, but it'd be much better than like sitting around and being like, well, what am I going to do now? Sort of deal. Like that stuff kind of drives me crazy. So I think I'd rather just be like, feel like I'm behind or catching up all the time. Just, otherwise it's like, yeah, I'll get a little stagnant. And that's probably what killed me with Tucson. It was like Groundhog Day every day because it's like 85 and like perfectly clear skies. And you're like, oh, it's the same day as yesterday and the 337 days before that, except for monsoon season. And that's it. So I don't know. I love it here.
That's so, so cool.
Yeah.
I'm just having like flashbacks to college. I just feel like we both are procrastinators, but you would just like stay up all night and do something. And I was like, I got to get to bed, get up early, do this assignment. Like
I'm a night
like,
man as well.
You're the night guy.
I was a hardcore procrastinator. Still am in some areas, but like that was like my thing. But now I'm in sales and you can't really like procrastinate because then you just like don't make money.
Right.
You know, like you don't make money and like you can't like, if someone responds to you, like count your blessings, like get back to them right away. So I think it kind of like based on like the type of work I do, kind of like fixed some of my like personality deficiencies in a sense, you know. Now I just procrastinate at home.
Nice. Good. Put off those chores a little bit. Who's that hurting?
Yeah. Like I've been needing to send out a fantasy football email to like regenerate my league for like 2 weeks now, and I just haven't done it yet. Dude, people like texted me.
You do fantasy football like every season?
Every season. I do a lot of fantasy sports. I do fantasy football, baseball, NBA, and golf.
I'm impressed how you guys keep up with this. Like I was in Austin for a bachelor party and everyone's talking about like the commissioner and we need to set these new rules and we need to get a meeting and I was like, I don't know how you guys do this. Like I can't even remember to check my email for work. Like I don't, it's like a full-time job doing all this fantasy stuff.
Not when you
But I mean, you're passionate about it. You enjoy it, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
It is like a full-time hobby, but I think what helps sometimes, like, well, NFL is easy because it's like the games are pretty much once a week other than like a Thursday or Monday. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you really wanted to wait, you could wait till Wednesday to like set your lineup or look at things or like put in a waiver claim. So it doesn't take as much effort. Like I'm in this baseball league that's every day. So like every day you have to set your lineup, and it sounds like a lot, but what I actually do is like when I'm first waking up in the morning and I'm like trying to get my brain like going for work, I'll have coffee, like I'll start eating a little food and I'll spend like 5-10 minutes. And that's when I do my lineup like early in the morning before the day starts. Cause it's like just something for me to like do and feel like I got an accomplishment done. Mm-hmm. And totally. It like kind of takes a little brain power and then like
kind of kicks your
and
brain
then I never
on.
forget. It's like kind of like part of my daily routine. It's like Saturdays and Sundays where I'm like, I sleep until 12 and like 3 games started and my guy's on the bench and I'm just like why can't I just like wake up at a normal hour, you know, sort of deal. Yeah. It's not too hard though. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fun. And you, what did you say? What league are you in? You're doing some kickball Thursday, softball. What did you say?
Oh, so I play pickup basketball every Thursday up in Highwood, actually.
Oh, fun.
Nice.
At the Highwood Rec Center. Yeah. Been doing it for like, I've been doing this run with these guys since I was 26. So like 8 years now, coming up on 9 years. It's good. It's good ball. It's good ball.
Good ball.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's honestly like for a while there was like the only thing I was doing that was like physically active for like a minute. But it's good. It's like 10 periods. And there's 5 players on each team, but it's 4-on-4 on the court. So everyone sits twice, but the 10 periods are 8.5 minutes. So you're still playing like 68 minutes of full court basketball, which is like a ton of running. So it's a hell of a workout. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just getting the age now where I'm like constantly getting like these little injuries and it's like impossible to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got us beat. We to do one sport a week would be huge. That would be great.
Yeah.
And now I just went running recently and I hurt my knee, like just because like I have no ass is what my doctor told me basically. So like my knees need to overcompensate for my lack of ass muscle. And so my one knee is just like, it can't even go up a step right now. Like, and
He's
so
in bad
that
shape.
they gave me, I'm doing exercises to strengthen my ass so that I can go upstairs again.
It's important.
That makes sense because I've had relatively strong knees and I've got a big ass. So, you know.
Dude, if there's one advice I'd give to like a teenager, it'd be like, get an ass and keep it.
Work your booty off.
It helps.
To get a booty
like
back on.
I can like clap these cheeks, dude. They're pretty good, you know.
I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I wouldn't be mad if you did.
You know, we'll see. If I was drinking, we could get it done.
If we get pick the right song, I know we could tap into something that would get him.
Drop that,
you know, don't drop that I was like singing that before this. Don't
I'm not even going to give you guys any hints on what Cisco song I'd like.
Oh man.
So, go ahead.
No, please.
Well,
Please.
So Christine told me that you were Mr. DHS 05. A great honor.
Fun fact.
Technically 2004 because it happened in December before the turn of the year. Technically.
Oh wow, they do Mr. DHS like in the
Facts on
winter.
your
They do it.
facts.
They do it like by the date. Like it's kind of like the Super Bowl.
Oh okay.
You know? Yeah.
So-
I
in that
don't
sense.
like the Super Bowl.
What?
Sure, Josh. Yeah.
It's very comparable. Very comparable.
Very similar to the
course,
Super
it
Bowl.
just-
Yeah.
If
They're
you look
like
at
this
if you look at the
close.
ticket sales and the advertising money,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all right.
I mean, yeah, the sponsor dollars, they're hard to track, but I think your math probably adds
Like
up.
you give me the option, win the Super Bowl, Mr. DHS. I don't know what I'm choosing. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's a bigger
That's
honor?
true.
What did you do for it? 'Cause
So I did I did Michael Jackson's Thriller.
wow.
And I put it up on a big screen behind me, and then I went toe to toe with the king himself.
Wow. And you just
Fearless.
did the dance.
Yeah, yeah. So like the backstory behind it was I initially never had like any interest into it. I remember seeing it my freshman and sophomore year, and then being like, oh, I'm never gonna I'm like talented at things, but I don't have like a talent. You know, I'm not like I go up there. People like knew different languages. They're great at like music. Like they could do like they're like a dance person. They're a gymnast. They like are musicians. There's always like a guitar person. I can't sing. I'm like never gonna be me. So, but then like my freshman year, very unexpectedly, one of my good buddies won Homecoming King. And then another one was in like a long-term relationship, and people were like, hey, you could win Prom King. So I was like, I feel like we should all try and win like all 3 crowns that year.
Whoa.
Like we should really go for it. People are like, that's a good idea. And they're like, well, what are we going to do about Mr. DHS? And I was like, you know what? I was like, if I put in the time and effort, I was like, I'll win it. So I said that like a few times, and then people were like, all right, now you actually have to do it. And the way it works is there's this like meeting for anyone interested where they bring you into this like classroom. You go in there and there's like usually, because I think like 12 people compete, but they cut the list down from like 30. So 30 people get in this meeting, they inform you about it, and then they're like, hey, you have to be serious. Here's like the rules. Here's how it goes. And then they hand you the sheet of paper and they ask you like a few questions about yourself. And then they ask you a question like, what do you plan on doing for Mr. DHS? But they also give people an opportunity to pick partners and partner up in case like you're worried about not being in. You have a better chance if like it's 2 people competing together. So they're like, you can do that, which a few people did in my class. But they put the sheet together, and my original thought was doing, because my last name is Weis, and my like handle is Vanilla Weis, right? So I was like, maybe I'll do like Ice Ice Baby, but do like Weis Baby, you know, kind of like my own rendition.
That
but
would've been
also
good
throw
too,
in the,
for
but
sure.
also throw in the Ninja Turtles part from like Ninja Turtles 2, where they're like, go Ninja, go. So I had like some ideas brewing. But then like a week before the actual thing, I remember I was just like in my room late at night watching VH1, and they're throwing back like all the old 80s music videos, and then Thriller just comes on. And it's like, and I don't even remember, the music video was sick.
Oh yeah.
The music video was like,
The music
it
video
was like
was an
7 minutes
event.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the music video was different than the actual song. The 2 songs weren't the same. The music video had like a different
don't
version
remember
to it
that.
because it had to lead the story up. Yeah, like people that know that, like the main chorus and hook was there, but the actual like the song was just chopped differently entirely. So it's kind of cool and unique. And I was like, the music video is way better. So I saw that and I was like, I'm gonna do that. I was like, I could do that. I think I could do that. I think I could do that. So I put in the write down. I was like, here's what I think. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm gonna do. And they were like, okay, if this guy's serious, like we've got to let him compete. So I made it in, and then I had like 8 weeks to prepare. And I initially like used LimeWire, downloaded the music video, gave my computer cancer. Worth it, you know. Like,
I mean,
and was
just
like,
necessary.
yeah, but I don't know if you know, like there's like you take up a lot of space in that dance, like a lot of space. So I had to like move my bed in my bedroom to like one side. I had to like move all these furniture around, and then I had to like
That's
plug out like.
commitment.
But then the TV monitor wasn't big enough, so I had to plug like a connector from my computer to my TV in my room and play it through my TV. It was this whole thing. And then I started like learning the dance, and it was like, I was like, I'm going to learn it like piece by piece. But the problem is because it's like it's a cut music video. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like random snippets where they go to like somebody else and they go to him.
Right.
So the only way to learn the dance is memorize what movements you have to make at what part of the song. So I had to like listen to this thing like 1,000 times. Even now, if like I'm like in a room by myself and like the music video one comes on, I could be like, you know, like I could still like figure out what each move and like.
I mean, it's like we were saying at the beginning. It's like wait, when you're 90, you're gonna hear this song and you'll just have the whole dance.
Yeah,
it's like you drop your bag of groceries and then just like break into it. You like, can't stop.
You're like, Grandpa, come on.
Like Grandpa's having a seizure. What's happening?
It's like he's fine.
He's doing it again.
Yeah,
he's doing it again.
Oh my God. So what do you think got you the crown? Like, whoa.
So yeah, there's a couple things. So I learned the dance and I spent a lot of time. I eventually got a DVD from someone who had the music video on a DVD, which made it way easier. But I also had never practiced in space up until like 2 days before the event, like never in a big space. But someone, I can't remember who it was, what teacher allowed me to like go into the dance studio on my free period and put in the DVD and then use the actual dance studio space. So I could like, because part of the way, like the path he took when he dances would actually have taken me off stage. So I had to figure out how to rework the movements to keep within the small stage for the performance. So like I used that to my advantage, but then a few things helped me win. So the way the format worked is you did a group dance for Mr. DHS. They did introductions. They did a group dance, which they judged you on. Then they asked you like questions. They got everyone you to pick a question from a hat. And then it was like, that was at
random. What is the perfect date? April 24th.
Like, if you could travel anywhere in the world, like, where would you go? Like all those things. So like, that could be like that. Some people could trip up on that. Like, sure. I think somebody got asked, where would you go? And some kid was like, oh, somewhere warm, like China. And people were like, oh man, you're done, dude. And then the last part was your talent fit, the actual like talent performance portion.
Right.
So for the dance one, because I was like naturally pretty good at dancing, I got to be front and center for the whole group dance, which like already like puts me, it's like getting pole position in racing.
Right.
You know, like you're already out in front. So, so I get like that. And then the question they gave me was, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it?
Oh, shoot.
And I told them, I said, I'd give it all to school chest, which was the whole fundraiser for it. You know? And then I was like, boom, dude. And I just walked away. I didn't even do anything. I just walked away.
Oh my gosh. You weren't excused, but you were out of there.
But fun fact, I don't know if like this was an Office Space was really popular.
Great movie.
And like one of the things they talked about, like, well, if you had $2 million, what would you do? And that one guy's like 2 chicks at the same time. I almost said that.
I don't know, man. I always wanted to do that.
It's probably better that you didn't, but that would have been good too.
No, I mean, that would have been like the thing people remembered, but I definitely wouldn't have won.
Right. You would have been like yanked out by the ear.
But you would have had legendary status in the history of Mr. DHS.
That's right.
Pretty epic, though. That's so funny.
Wow.
God,
so you got it. Yeah, go ahead.
But so here's the other thing. Because I told you I'd seen 2 Mr. DHSs before, I knew one very important fact. That going in every year, there was always like the crowd. There was always like the presumed favorite. Then there was always the person that everyone like was like rooted for, usually like someone popular, people liked. And then there was the underdog, under the radar, the kid you did not expect to show up, the kid you didn't know had a talent, who just blows your fucking socks off. Because he has the surprise factor, right? Like you're like, holy crap, this person can do that. And it happens like every year. One year, one kid won because he sang the national anthem in like 7 different languages, in their home country's language. And nobody even knew he could do that. And there was just like little stuff like, so I was like, that's part of the reason I also picked her. I was like, if I'm going to win, being the favorite isn't enough. I've got to be able to like top whatever some like under the radar kid's going to fall, because it's going to happen. Like, I set myself up for that. And sure enough, there's a kid, Stephen Chapman, who wrote a custom song on an acoustic guitar, like an acoustic guitar song about being Mr. DHS, about like never like being like never having like never in a million years getting up on stage, like people overlooking him. This is like his time. Just wants to be your Mr. DHS. It was like really clever, and it was like, and it used like the Brown Eyed Girl like riff. So like I remember we did rehearsals. So nobody was like, you get rehearsals the day before and you get to see everyone else's, like see what's in the bag.
And you're like,
So,
oh, this fucking guy.
Yeah. And then sure enough, he came up and I was like, oh, that's the one. That's totally the one right there.
That's my competition.
Yeah.
He was the one
but
to
then
watch.
but I also, for my performance, I kind of sandbagged it a little bit.
What does that mean?
I hustled it a little bit. I just like, I like almost phoned in my like rehearsal. I missed steps. I like didn't really do half the stuff I did. There's a certain point in the Thriller song where like does a leg kick and a spin. I didn't bust out the moonwalk like I normally would. So I kind of like dialed it back a little bit, and people were like, "Oh, okay, this is really good, but like, is it good enough?" And then when like
leave
we
them
actually
wanting more.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the last thing that helped was every single person's performance had some type of glitch for the most part. So the kid the kid I was telling you about, he actually finished runner up, but his guitar string broke.
Ooh,
There was another kid, Jimmy Behringer.
To see it happen, folks.
There's a kid, Jimmy Behringer, who was an unbelievable guitarist, and his foot pedal didn't work, so he couldn't do like half the cool riffs he wanted to. Someone's CD kept skipping because this was CDs. You know, like someone's CD was skipping. There was like all these little things that happened. I will say the best performance though wasn't mine, and the kid should have won, except the judges didn't get the reference. And that was a kid named Adam Baird who did, I'm not even kidding, an immaculately perfect Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh,
like completely perfect.
I do. I remember hearing about it at least.
It was unbelievable. And he came out tater tots in his pockets. He looked like him. He sounded like him. He had the exact outfit, the boat for Pedro. He had the boots, the pants, everything was quintessentially perfect. The problem was half the judges had seen the movie. The other half didn't even know what it was. Because it was only out in theaters like 3 or 4 months earlier than that. It wasn't even out on DVD.
Wow.
So it didn't even get a chance to really get legs and popularity. So 6 of the 12 judges got it. All of us on the side of the stage were dying.
Right.
It was absolutely perfect. He nailed the dance spot on. I felt bad. I was like, dude, you probably if you'd done it a year later, you would have won for sure.
Well, you're kind to give him an honorable mention right now.
Right. I mean, it was.
But the crown belonged where it landed.
The crown, the crown. I
did put on a good show. And originally they were only supposed to put the screen on a semi big screen to the side of the stage. But for some reason they're like, oh, we can't get it to play over there. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Well, we can put it on the giant. It took up the entire screen behind the stage. So they're like, we can do that. And I was like, that's even better.
I actually have vague memories of this. Cause I school chess. This was this huge annual fundraiser that our high school would do every year. It was always around the holidays. And it was insane how much money the school raised. I don't know. I just remember one year it was $100,000 or something. It was crazy.
It was it was 160 the year I did it. And it got big. They broke the record bigger. Every year from the year before.
Crazy.
Yeah. Mr. DHS, they would sell $10 a ticket, and they sold 900 tickets or something.
Yeah, I remember that was the year I wore the puffy vest. I think we all bought tickets. I don't know.
The year you wore the puffy
Erica
vest.
always makes fun of me for freshman year. A bunch of my friends and I all had the same kind of
North Face
bubble jacket,
but it was Gap, I think. But yeah, it was a puffy, just a vest. We were all that
was the
gang.
Style.
Yeah,
that was the cool kid style.
I'm flashing back to that place.
Ugg boots and your North Face vest. That's the move.
Yes.
And a headband, maybe. Maybe.
Perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I can see it.
That's so funny.
So you win.
I think.
Did you guys get the Triple Crown?
No, my buddy did not get prom king. He did not.
Wow.
His heart wasn't in it, He didn't really advocate for himself too well.
You gotta want it.
You definitely have to want it. That's what I was.
Nobody's gonna vote for someone who doesn't want it. Yeah.
You gotta want it. And you know what? When I won, I was that one. I won purely by outworking people.
Right.
I outworked them. I was I know other people put in work.
Moved every bit of furniture out of my way. I did the work. I logged the hours.
Rearranged your house for that one.
I downloaded 7 minutes of Michael Jackson.
Put in the time. And even the big screen helped because whenever I did we did our movements at the exact same time. So it was boom, 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 in the same direction. It just looked cool.
Dope.
I used to have the DVD. I had a recording from a tape. They gave everyone a tape recording, and then I converted it to a DVD, and then I lost it.
Oh.
So now I got 2 pictures, and that's it.
And a memory, and a memory that'll hopefully last every time you hear Thriller.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But then there was a stretch of like a few years where every time the song came on, people like, do the dance. And I'd be like,
No,
nah,
man,
dude,
there's
like
a time and
dance, monkey,
place.
dance.
Yeah, exactly. You got to shut that down quick.
Listening to him though, listening to you, I'm realizing another component of that like Chicago energy is just the competitiveness. It's a Chicago thing. We're a competitive city. Like our rivalries run deep too. Like you're a Cubs fan, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cubs fans. There's like a great divide. Cubs, Sox.
Right. I remember
like,
growing
there's
up
all
hearing
these,
about like there was a
rifts.
fight in the streets between Cubs and Sox fans. Like someone got beat up. Like it was news sometimes that like someone was in the hospital because they wore a Sox shirt or a
I
Cubs
feel
shirt.
like that's a quintessentially. I mean, other
I
cities,
don't know. Other cities have their issues.
have
with
it.
I think the inner city rivalry isn't as big now as like the interdivision. So like I would beef more with Cardinal fans than I would with Sox fans.
St. Louis fans
You know what
are
I
known
mean?
to be pretty
Or
annoying.
like if you're, and then there's like Bears Packers, just like that's the real litmus test right there. But then we all unite here in the city together, Cubs and Sox fans alike.
Everyone's getting along better now. The Cubs and the Sox fans.
Yeah, I think so. Because like what helps is like that their rise and fall were at different times. So like when the Cubs won the World Series and they were good, the Sox sucked and were rebuilding. And now the Sox are peaking and the Cubs are in full blown rebuild. So it's like it's not like during these years, there's not like a competition, you know? And right now I'm like, the other day I turned off the Cubs game and I put the Sox game on for the first time in like a long time. I was like, they're just more fun to watch. They're just more fun to watch. Like, and like, I'm still a Cubs fan, but I was like, I want to watch a team that's the top of their division with like 7 exciting young players versus a Cubs team that has like literally a bunch of AAA guys who just got called up last week.
Yeah. And if I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not a huge sports person. I'm not very passionate, but I'd rather see if it's not the Cubs winning, I'd rather it's the White Sox, you know, like
I'm pulling for them this year. I would love for them to win. That'd be cool.
Man, when the Cubs won,
to rise above everybody.
Where were you when the Cubs won?
When the Cubs won, I was at home and I was dating someone from Cleveland.
Wow.
So she was like super upset about it. And I just ran down my street. I was blackout drunk, barefoot, and it was raining that night too. And I didn't even care. I was just running around the neighborhood, just high-fiving a bunch of strangers. Yeah. All these people came I came running out of my house. I looked down the street. This other guy comes darting out. We ran to each other, like high-fived each other, and I hugged a stranger. And we both darted in different directions.
So beautiful.
And then the horn, like everyone's slamming their horn everywhere. Like you see all the TVs on in everyone's living room. There's all this shouting. And then I run to this main road and it's like still kind of raining. I'm barefoot and like high-five all these people coming out of bars. And it was just like, it was fun. It was like the Blackhawks was like very similar to the way people celebrated, but the Cubs was like on the north side, those north neighborhoods, it was just on another level.
Yeah.
So fun. I was happy for him too. I'm going to go on record to say, but yeah, it's so funny. Like I was brainwashed. Like my dad, he still refers to him as like those baby bears.
Baby bears.
He's like those little baby bears. Like
who doesn't love baby bears? You know?
He says, I love baby bears now, but it took me a long time to realize I had room in my heart to love both teams.
It was a crazy. The Cubs winning was just something you were told your whole life. You'll never see it. It'll never happen. Mm-hmm. You'll never see it. Like whereas the Blackhawks was like exciting, but it didn't have this same
the Blackhawks
like.
was magical. Just stop right there.
I'm with you. I guess
there.
Just for me and what I perceived around me, because like I said, I'm not, my passion for it doesn't really measure what other people felt, but it felt like the Cubs thing I think was just a bigger deal because it was supposed to be impossible or something.
Yeah,
it was
like ended the curse.
There was like this curse.
Everybody likes to end a curse, you know.
Right.
That was the big thing. Like because I was in high school in 2003 when they went to the NLCS and they played the Florida Marlins. They went up 3-1,
mm-hmm.
and that team was good. Like people remember that team was really good. Mm-hmm. Their pitching they had Mark Pryor who was literally droiding hard in the prime. It's like best young pitcher in the game is absolute prime. They had Kerry Wood, who was an absolute stud. They had Carlos Zambrano was like the 4th or 5th pitcher, and he was a young, good pitcher. This guy, Matt Clement.
He was the one, Zambrano was the guy that like hit everything like 20 times when he was up to bat, right?
No, that was the shortstop we had traded for the year after that. God, I can't think of his name right now, but he was from the Red Sox.
Yes.
But I know
right.
you're talking about. He would do that.
It
But I
always,
mean, they
like,
had
cracked me up.
no Ramirez was on that team though. But they had Kenny Lofton, they had Ramirez, they had Sosa. They had
Pujols?
Alex
Am I thinking of
Gonzalez at
Pujols?
shortstop. No, Pujols on the Cardinals. I know what you're
I
thinking
don't
of.
know.
We traded for. Oh my, I'll look it up in a minute.
Yeah, that
Um,
Alou was in the outfield. The guy who
Alou.
caught the ball, that was
Yeah.
Alou's ball,
The
right?
guy who caught
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ball. I
Yeah,
love this.
yeah. Mark, that was what's his name? Oh my God, I'm blanking on that guy's name too. He was the number one Halloween costume that year.
Oh, I bet. Dude, he had to move, right? He had to leave
He
Chicago.
went into like witness protection.
Yeah, that was like the first doxing I'd ever seen.
This is that one foul ball.
Steve Bartman.
Steve Bartman, there it is.
So this is that foul ball
Steve
play.
Bartman.
So we were playing the Marlins. There's a ball that's foul. Alou's
So
going to
that was-
catch it, but a
That was
fan
game 6.
grabs
Yeah.
it.
So we went up 3-1 that year, and then in game 5 we were up like 2 or 3 runs in like the 5th or the 6th. The Marlins came back and won. Now it's 3-2. We're like, okay, it's fine. Then we go back to Chicago for game 6, and we're like, this is good. So we're in Chicago in game 6, and that was so. Then we are now 5 outs from the World Series with like a 6-run lead, and like in baseball, like you just don't blow that. Like at this point, I'm like, all right, we had the curse of a few other different other decades. Like we're good to go. Then they start getting on these little runs. But what people don't remember about the Bartman incident, and like, this is what kind of like bothered me, was there was a point where, like, again, there's 5 outs left. We had 1 out in the 8th inning. They started to go on a little bit of a run. They scored a run. It's like now like 7-2 or something. Someone hits a ground ball straight at Alex Gonzalez, our shortstop, when they had a guy on first. That is a tailor-made double play ball. That's going to end the inning. Alex Gonzalez had the highest defensive fielding percentage for a shortstop in Major League Baseball that year. Like literally the best shortstop to turn this double play, gets a tailor-made ball right to him, goes to scoop and turn and bobbles it. It just has to eat the ball on the play. No outs. Didn't even get a single out on that play. Then the Bartman play happened 2 at-bats later. So it's like for everyone to get mad at Steve Bartman for like ruining it, it was like, you should probably blame Alex Gonzalez because the Cubs would have been out of the inning with like a 4-run lead.
Wow, we should have won that
People
game
remember that.
before that even happened.
That inning should have been over like long, but like 2 or 3 at-bats before Bartman. And also like somebody else interfered in a play like earlier in the game in the same situation with Alou. So it was like, you can't really blame him for that. The reason people gave him a hard time was because the guy was listening to the game on a headset. So like, if you play the radio like that he's listening to, they're like, foul ball, it's near the fine line. Like, Alou's trying to get room, and he just still sticks his head. Like, imagine them being like, don't put your hands out. And you're like, no, okay, cool.
Right,
you know,
right.
like.
And I remember Alou just being like, come on, like yelling at him, like, what the hell?
He freaked out.
Yeah, and I think that hurt him. That hurt Bartman because it's like.
That did. But at the same time, we still had a 3-run lead. We still had a 3-run lead at the time. It was just like, we needed that out. And then when they like took the lead in that inning, then right after that inning ended, people started throwing beers at the guy. Because they were like, that's the guy's fault. I'm like, you should have thrown at the shortstop, to be honest, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, there was just
funny
like
thing
little
about
stuff like
sports
that.
fans, though. Like the memories run so deep.
I was going to say,
the
I love
random
your
trivia.
detail that you have
I
here.
know. This is honestly, this is the cornerstone of our friendship, I would say. It was like me catching Chicago sports with Josh. He was like my pal to go watch sports with. It's so funny, but
I watch every Bear game. I bought Sunday tickets
I'm like
to
a
watch them.
hobbyist, though. But like I don't buy. I guess I do buy cable now because I want to watch sports. I missed football. That's the reason I have
like
cable. But like
our gender roles are.
Yeah. I couldn't afford it back then in college, so I had to I had to go.
You're
house.
in the kitchen wearing an apron.
Yeah,
She's
exactly.
Slamming wings, watching the game.
I'm like,
babe, grab me a beer.
this muffin recipe is not. I didn't quite get it this time. I need more salt next time.
Put a little
You're just like, honey,
there.
crack me a beer.
Hey, thinking about bringing the boys over. I was going to catch the game.
Yeah.
It's just so funny how many like random bits of information are tied to these sports memories. Like it just goes so deep in you.
I take it a little further. I have like a really good long-term memory. And when it comes to sports, I remember a lot of things. Like probably too many, you know?
Maybe it's like there's this emotional attachment to it also that helps the memory maybe.
There is,
Makes sense.
But also like when I was younger, in like my 20s, I knew like I remembered things easier because I was like constantly I still read a lot of sports. I'm on ESPN.com all day. I'm on Bleacher Report. I get like my Twitter feeds. I get like my Instagram. But like I used to know like I could tell you like a player's like 8-year statistics like that, like no problem. Yeah, little stuff like that. Now I'm not as extreme about it, but I remember things from when I was younger. Like, oh, I remember that game. Like, I remember how I felt. I remember I was in my buddy's basement. I remember who was there.
So
I remember
cool.
like how I remember my heart pounding in my chest when I thought we were going to win the game. And then I just remember the sheer absolute disappointment after. And one thing that like people don't like, that a lot of Chicago people right around our age will resonate with is that we got really fucked up with like in our head about like what our expectations were for winning. Because when you grew up in the 90s during the Jordan era, it's like winning the year, like every year I remember as a kid, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to win the championship this year. It was like it was like an afterthought. It was not like, oh, are we going to win? It was like, oh, I can't wait till we do.
Right. It was like a movie that's coming
like,
out, but you know the hero's going to win.
Yeah. It's like how Patriots fans probably felt with Tom Brady. I was like, well, we're gonna win one of these next 2 years. So like, we're definitely gonna win this year. Like, you know, it happens. You're not surprised, and then you're just like, mind sets up this expectation that every time you have a good team, you're like, oh, they're gonna win. So then but then after the '98, it was like I didn't have a team win till the Blackhawks. But even then, I wasn't a huge hockey guy. So for me, the first real legitimate like professional team I was like down for was that 2016 Cubs team. I didn't see anyone else till then. It was like I went 18 years from like the very end of my childhood to like the middle of my adult years, where it was like before I really got a taste of that pie, you know?
Yeah, being a Cubs fan, you sort of learn to deal with disappointment. It's like
and the Bears had some good runs. Like we went to the Super Bowl against the Colts.
Real close.
Hester took the kick to the house.
Hester was so fun to watch those years.
Oh my God. We picked off Manning on their second drive and then like ran it back down to like our 40-yard line and we were up 7-0. I remember in my head, I was like, this game is fucking over.
Yeah.
Like we've shit on teams. We shit on teams so hard that year all the time, just like that.
Yeah.
Hester takes a kick to the house.
Yeah.
Our defense mauls them. They get deflated early. It's steamroll time. And I was like, Peyton Manning hadn't won a Super Bowl yet. He was notoriously known for choking in big games. So I was like, oh, this is just going to be a classic Bears pancaking this team. And I'm going to like just put on the Super Bowl shuffle after the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in Arizona at the time. It was 2006. I was hosting a Super Bowl party. And then it all just unraveled. Then Rex Grossman happened and it all just unraveled.
And then you're crying, just like, everybody out.
Yeah.
Party's over, folks.
I literally took all of my NFC championship gear and I threw it in a trash can.
Wow.
Because I was like, your conference champions are like, none of this means anything.
Oh my
I kind of wish I kept it because like I wish I still had that stuff, but I legitimately threw it out that night. I was so upset.
You got the passion. You got passion for it. That it makes you do crazy things, but it's good.
I'm a lot better about my teams losing now. Although I will say some of those Arizona basketball games a few years back were tough. Those were pretty hard because we had some really good teams.
I've been like so out of watching Arizona sports. Actually, I'm ashamed to say, but it's been a while since they've been like the basketball team's been where it used to be. So that kind of takes it. I always put them in my brackets when I see them in the March Madness and everything, but yeah, they haven't been performing too well. And then there's been like scandal after scandal lately with all the coaches.
Yeah, they
room.
bought a few players, which I wasn't really mad about. Everybody does it. They just got caught.
That wasn't
That's
even
really
what
what it
bothered
comes
me
down
the
to.
most. Just like there was some allegations of like sexual assault at the administrative, like the athletic department covered up and stuff. I'm not down for that.
Yeah, they actually cleaned house though, thankfully. They like held people accountable and fired everybody. Some school programs are like, well, that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they wait till the person retires and dies. And they're like, okay, so it happened.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, like
about that.
Yeah. Cough, Penn State, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear. I guess I kind of fell off the case. I didn't really know what shook out.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was, they were good about it. Like when it came out, like, because like even Rich Rodriguez, the football coach, was one of them. Like something came out and they were like, oh, yeah, you're gone. Like we fired him. People are like, okay.
Good.
You know, there wasn't really much loyalty to the guy anyway.
Wait, you're talking about a coach? Because I thought that there were situations with players.
There were situations with players they let go. There was a situation with the football coach, like getting involved with the younger girl. That it was, even though that one was consensual, it was just the fact that he was getting involved with like a student,
I see.
like a 21-year-old girl. You're like, you can't do that. And he was like married. So it's like the optics of it were just awful. The one really bad one was there was a weightlifting coach who was like taking advantage of his female weightlifting, the weightlifting like girls for like the female like school. Like that guy was like taking advantage of all of them. And that was like a serious one. He was like threatening to kill them, like smear their records, like send photos of them out in the public. That was like a really nasty one.
Jesus.
And then they fired him and the AD who didn't do anything about it, and a few other people in the program who had like ignored the early signs. They fired all of them. They were like, you all are just straight. Like that is a systematic failure. You all have to go.
Good.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. I remember that scandal. I was like reading it. We weren't in school anymore, but I remember reading about that being like, what the dude, like, holy crap.
Yeah, not what you want to see.
No,
Shaking
not
out.
what you want to say.
I'm usually proud. I'm usually proud of our school. I freaking loved going to the U of A. I feel like you did too. Did you have a good experience collectively?
I very much enjoyed it. I still love being a diehard fan. I love running into a Wildcat every now and then, like in business settings or something.
I can't help but say bear down. It's so annoying. I'm like, I hate myself, but here it is. It's coming out now.
I do it either way. But you know what? In sales, it helps a lot. Like when you have an alumni, like it like goes like there's just like it's like a different bond. Like they'll pick up my call and they won't pick up my competitors.
Sure.
Because they're not a Wildcat.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny how that works.
It's nice. It is nice. It's kind of like where you're from the same area. If you know some people, things like that.
Exactly.
Makes business with people. There's just like a built-in trust. It's like, this guy's legit.
Yeah.
How do you know?
I'll vouch for him. Yeah.
The Wildcat.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What type of stuff do you sell?
I sell software that it does like it's government relations and it's software and services too. So I'm like very into politics, and then I ended up working out that like my new company I started with sells software that like tracks and monitors legislation, like bills and regulations. It does like, and it like helps you identify stakeholders in the government to advocate to, gives you their contact info, like bios about them. We do things where like we have a grassroots advocacy tool that you can use to like, you know, you get those emails, like sign up here, put in your, like your address. It like autofills your legislators, a canned message, or it gives you talking points. That's one of our tools, Voter Voice. Like software is great. Services are great. Company's awesome. And now I get to like talk to like businesses who like focus on government relations work. I've talked to like advocacy groups, nonprofits, think tanks, a whole different spectrum of people who are like trying to look to either keep track of things going on in policy that can impact their business or organization, or actually go out and advocate and like influence it. Not always lobbying, but sometimes like educating and things like that. So it's pretty sweet. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's a great fit for you. I feel like, I don't know. I like your social media. You don't hold back on your opinions whatsoever. And I respect that because I am very opinionated, but like I don't, I mean, I choose not to put it out there most of the time. And I'm not really sure why, but I appreciate you. You get into the debates. You get into the tough conversations.
And you know, and what ends up happening is you really actually, you can find out about the person's political stance just by putting something out there and like seeing what comes back.
Sure.
Like there will be people who like will like message me, like I'll put a post about something and then they'll come back with the opposite argument, like the usual talking points. Well, you didn't know about this, this, and this, and then like people, and now I've argued with people about politics so much over the last 5 years that now I can identify like their fallacies they use, their tactics, call them out on it, and then like kind of work backwards from there. Like sea lioning has gotten really big. People do like straw man tactics, a lot of red herring. There's like
what are these things? What are these things?
Break it down for us. I don't know these terms.
Like, okay, sea lioning is when, I don't know if you've ever seen this, when people like are arguing with you, they ask you 9 questions in a row. Well, what about this person? You ever thought about that? Do you know anyone like this? What do you know? Like that is like a very common tactic that people use, and they don't even realize they're doing it. They don't even know what it's called or what it is, but they do it all the time. It's like they'll ask you 9 questions in one paragraph, and you're like, how am I even supposed to answer that?
Well, they're not actually looking for an answer.
Yeah. So that's one. The other big one is straw man, and that's where like people will like they'll have an argument and they'll put up like a different argument or ask a question that like is technically like a loaded question, and they'll get you to like attack a straw man. Like they're not actually like going to attack the real question. Like I'm trying to think of a good way. Okay, for example, you argue with someone about COVID who's anti-mask, anti-vaccine. Okay. They'll be like, well, let me ask you a question. Does the mask guarantee 100% effectiveness against the virus? And you're like, of course it does. But then they're like, exactly. Then why should we wear masks? And I'm like, I'm like, hey, like, well, let me ask you a question. Like, does a condom guarantee you're not going to get someone pregnant or get an STD? It's like, no.
Right.
Should we just stop wearing condoms?
Right.
Like,
does a helmet guarantee you can't die? No.
Yeah, like it's like, but like I use the condom one all the time. I'm like, dude, I'm like, what, are you going to tell your kids not to wear condoms because not 100% effective? Yeah, just go out there and stick your dick in whatever. That'll work for great.
You're better off. Yeah, exactly. Like if
no,
it's
what's
not
going to happen?
100%.
What's going to happen is your kid's going to get a fucking disease.
Right.
He's going to give it to other kids, and then that's it. Now your kid's going to have that for the rest of his life. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So like this, but that's like that's a strategy that people do, is they'll put like a question out there that's like not really directly related to the point you're trying to make, and they'll go with that. And it's like, if you want to like connect with these, if you want to actually like argue with these people and have civil discourse, a lot of the times I will like, you ask people open-ended questions to get them to like really open up, like, and get to the core of like what they're saying. You're like, oh, I want to do this, or like, we shouldn't do that. You'd be like, okay, well, how do you propose we do it? Or like, why should we do that? Or like, what do you think we should do to fix this? You ask them to like give you solutions, not complaints. Like people love like just outrage politics is like, outrage politics and confirmation bias has like grown to a point now where it's completely out of control.
Mm-hmm.
To the fact that is now overwhelming objective reporting, like 10 to 1, right? Like people don't give a shit about objective reporting. They don't think it exists. They want to hear what they want to hear. And that's pretty much the end of it there. And it's becoming difficult to like communicate with these people. So I will get them to like really break down like what they're like trying to say, what their core cause is. And then I relate to them. Then I'll be like, hey, like you and I are really not that much different than yourselves. It sounds to me like you feel this way. And then I label it. Like I get to their feeling, I put a label on it. And then when they're like, yeah, that's right. And you're like, great. Well, let me tell you now my positioning. And then I do those things. During the Trump debates with a lot of like the Black Lives Matter going on and the protesting, everyone's like, oh, well, these like people are destroying communities, and oh, they're complaining about police violence, but they're doing nothing about, 100 people getting shot every weekend in Chicago. It's like the most popular GOP talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one's doing anything about all these like deaths in these Democratic cities. So I'll ask them like questions over and over again to be like, hey, like, like, does this bother you? Like, are you like concerned about the welfare of these? It sounds like you're upset about these people dying in the city. Like, are you concerned about it? And I get them to find like, yeah, I'm mad about it. I'm like, great. Like, you know what? Like, hey, here's a list of 46 anti-gun violence advocacy groups in the city of Chicago. All of them are fighting every single day. They employ staff of 20 plus people. Every single day they're coming up with alternative solutions to gun violence. It sounds to me like this really bothers you, and you just mentioned it did. Why don't we both donate $30 to one of these groups together? And then I get them to like actually put their money where their mouth is and donate to anti-violence groups in Chicago, just because they want to prove a point about how angry they are. And at the end of it, I'm like, you just donated $30 to a nonprofit that like you would have never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like make them, and I'll send them my receipt. Like, send me your receipt. Like, show me your screenshot. Like, show me you actually donated. And then if they don't, I'm like, look, like, you clearly don't care. You're just using it as a talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then after that, they won't like bring it up again. So there's like little ways to like lead people down a path, and then, kind of get them to a certain point. And
yeah.
And it takes a lot of patience, actually. I was gonna say a little bit of patience. It takes a lot of patience. And people love to like rely on very overarching. Don't ever come at people's statistics. Everyone's like, statistics for this, because if you talk to a certain person, they're gonna have a million statistics on why you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, oh, well, FBI data shows or this shows. I'm like, dude, you're wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
Literally get to the core emotion of like why they feel a certain way, and then be like, look, like I also feel the same way. I'm also frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a bunch of things you didn't know about like this cause or this issue. And here's all these people fighting to fix it that you've completely ignored or looked over. And let's donate and let's do something about it together. Mm-hmm. Let's like share this message. Let's get them to donate money to it. And then they kind of are like you took them down a path, and now they're in this place where they're like, fuck, how did I even get here?
Right.
Yeah, like you bamboozled them through and through.
Yeah.
Is there anything that like gets your blood boiling? Because you obviously are so used to like just the confrontation at this point. So is there what triggers you in these moments, if anything?
I think like for me, it's when I've argued with somebody about something, the same thing over and over again, and then like they bring up the same like things we've talked about. I've already like debunked, refuted, took them down that road again, and I just don't see any progress from them.
Yeah.
That stuff kind of like, it's like, it is like literally like throwing it's banging your head against the wall and like expecting like something to break or change. And there are some people like that will never change. And the reason I used to argue with a few, like 2 or 3 certain people about Trump and this and that for like years on Facebook and go back and forth. And people would always be like, oh, like, that's great. You have the patience for it. Why do you do it? Because I understand technology, and technology has forced these algorithms. By 2018, your Facebook timeline will only show you shit you want to see. It'll only be like pro your policies, your things you're interested, your news sources. You aren't going to see anything outside of what you normally don't feel. They gamed your whole algorithm to like show you shit that you're interested in, to sell you ads, to get you to stay on the app longer, those things. So by that point, I was like, there's no way that those two communities were ever going to talk to each other. They were just going to grow like in their own little place in their safe haven, just getting worse and worse and further apart. So I was like, how do I get my message from here to someone else's community? Well, I have to be very engaging with certain individuals who are like super right or like super one way, so that when we're commenting, all of a sudden I'm now on their timeline. All of their friends who are very similar are now seeing my messages and like my commentary and my things. And then their friends are jumping in and I'm like, cool. And now I'm going to show up on someone else. Like I just like did that so I can invade other people's timelines and get my timeline and get like real truth and points across to like
Trojan horsing it.
Yeah, a little bit. But I was like, it takes a little bit of effort. It takes a lot of patience. And then I would have like, I had a few people during like this last run of election cycles who would like message me on the side and be like, hey, is this really true? Or like, where did you read about this? And like, did you get it from CNN? And I'm like, no, I got it from Congressional Quarterly. Like they're like legitimately like objective reporting from the Capitol. Like it's everything from the Hill. It's policy analysis. It's not even like it's not an opinion at all. Like literally like every congressional rep uses this like news source for information. I was like, I can send you the direct CRS report. And they're like, what's the CRS? So I have to explain like how policy is shaped, how committee hearings work, how expert testimony, like explain to them, like, and now read this. And I'm like, look, like there's no bias, there's no spin. I'm like, these are like the statistics and facts. I'm like, this is what's happening to people with this policy. This is what this person's trying to do. And then like you make them rethink things and like, oh, fuck, I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, like, of course you didn't know that because you're like watching Fox News all day. And like you're getting like, or you have like the same people on your timeline hitting you with these like ridiculous memes that are just like not even true.
Right.
So it just but I was able to flip like 4 people from like voting for Trump. I got like 4 individuals.
Hey.
So it's like,
thanks for the hard
that's
work.
like usually really hard.
What I love about what you're saying is like, I feel like people have forgotten just how to talk to each other at all and like how to actually like change someone's opinion, you know, like if you go to someone who supports Trump, you just say, you're a Nazi, you're a fucking dumbass piece of shit.
They're pushing them further away.
They're never going to change their opinion. Yeah. They're going to dig their heels in and come at you where, even if you're right, even if they're like openly racist, if you say like, you piece of shit racist, like they're not going to change. Yeah. Like you have to be able to say like, yeah,
you're dumb.
Oh yeah, you're dumb.
Clown face emoji.
Oh yeah. Call someone dumb. You're not changing anything. You're making it worse.
Nothing.
No matter how right you are, you're making it worse. Like pragmatically, it helps more to say, like even if someone's like, I hate black people, you know, it's better to say, look, all right, let's figure out like why you feel that way, and like, you know,
have you always felt this way?
Right.
You know,
and
like that's like.
Exactly. Or, you know, and that's an extreme example. It's often a lot less extreme of an issue, but it's like, I understand why you might feel that way. And like, here's some things maybe you never thought about, or like, here's my experience with it. And like, you know, sort of guide their opinion. And you kind of almost have to join someone's opinion slightly in order to guide their opinion somewhere. You know, you have to like meet together, say like, yes, I agree. You know,
the biggest challenge you're going to run into is like, it's
I was trying to see how you're going to finish that one.
Well, comfort is like the ease. Comfort is like addicting, right? Like people get into relationships, they get comfortable. People do the same things over and over again, they get comfortable. Like comfort is dangerous. And it's the same way in politics. Like if you grew up in a certain way and you weren't exposed to people of different colors, of different races, if you weren't exposed to the LGBTQ community, if you weren't exposed to poor people, if you weren't exposed to like all these different things, it's work to like go that route, to like experience those things, to meet with these people, to be friends with them. If you live in this bubble
empathy.
and you're not exposed to, not even so much empathy, but like not even having like a single friend in that space to have a voice. Because a lot of people change their opinion when they're like, no, I actually know a guy who's like, you know, I know a guy who's gay, or I know a guy who's handicapped, or I know a guy who's black. And like, he's really not any of those things that I'm hearing all the time.
Right.
And it could shape their opinion. But when you don't have someone like that in your life, like you're just like never going to experience it. You're going to go with like what other people are saying or what you perceive in the media or culture or whatnot. And so a lot of like the comfort behind that of like not having to like put in any effort and to just kind of sit back and not improve like your thought process is makes it really difficult to overcome.
Yeah.
And and I hate to say it, like conservatives are really good at leaning into that. To like keep people that way, to keep them separated, to keep their thought process, to like make them afraid of change and other influences into them. And that's why people like don't embrace, that's why like there's even become a bigger divide, because instead of being like, oh, I'm going to tell you an argument against the LGBT community, I'm going to make you hate the community by telling you that all they are is they're woke or they're this way or they're brainwashing you so that you don't even want to make an effort to get to know them or get to know a person from there. And then you'll never change, because then it doesn't matter what anyone's argument is, how sound it is, how like true it is. It doesn't matter. That person's comfortable with who they are.
Sure. But I think that happens with the left as well, that oversimplification where it's like if someone voted for Trump, they hate women, they're racist, they hate Jews, they want immigrants to die. And like, it's sort of, it's like, I think everyone pretty equally wants to very much simplify, like no nuance, you know? And like,
100%.
What's the left opinion? I'm that, whatever that is, I'm that, great, I'm left, cool. Like I'm done having to think about any of this stuff. And we'd rather do that than take it piece by piece and even like taking an issue piece by piece, like immigration. Sure, it's important to have a border. You can't just let everyone come in willy-nilly, but also like we need to have empathy for people. We need to be compassionate. We need to find a way to like find this middle ground that works. But like people just want to go, what is the most simple, easiest? I'll just attach to this ideology and like I'm done. I mean, it's crazy. Like if someone says I'm pro-choice or I'm pro-life, or let's say someone says I'm pro-life, you kind of know everything about them now. I know how you feel about the war. I know how you feel about taxes, how you feel about poor people, how you feel about Black Lives Matter, like just based off that one opinion. Because we've grown to so simplify things that if you have one opinion, you're that whole group. There's no room for variation. And I think it's a huge problem. Yeah.
And it's funny, like one of the first surprise Trump supporters I ever like would talk to about this was one of my primary physicians who was an Egyptian doctor. And he was a Trump supporter. And like, I remember he was like, we were talking about it. He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. So like, I'm voting this way. I'm doing this. I was like, Doc, like, who are you voting for? He's like, you don't want to know. I was like, no, she's like, who are you voting? He's like, and this is like in 2016. He's like, or 2015. He's like, I'm a Trump guy. And I was like, all right. I was like, you got to explain it to me. I was like, I got to hear from you. I was like, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or this. And I was like, I got to know why. And so he like kind of broke it down to me at the time. He was like, look, like this guy's kind of an idiot. He was like, but he was like, I think like any other president, he's like, you're just going to put smart people around him. He was like, I think he's just like I think the reason the reason he's so open like about things is just, he's like, he's a showman. He has bravado. His whole thing, he was like, this guy is just trying to appeal to people to win votes. He's like, but when he actually gets in office, he was like, I think he's going to do this, this, and this. And I was like, that's like, it made sense. Like where he's coming from, like as an immigrant to this country from Egypt. He was like, he's a doctor. He's like clearly like a doc. I'm going to him for like medical advice. Like he's a smart person. He's like wealthy. He's smart. He's an immigrant. He's from the Middle East. And I was like, and here's a guy who's like, I like Trump. And he explained to me why he liked him and why he believed like to vote for him. And then we ended up I ended up going to a new provider with my old job. So like, I think it was like 2017. I haven't talked to him since then, but I remember there was like a year in where he was like, we had a couple of conversations. He's like, yeah, it's getting a little dicey right now.
the act has not slowed down. If he's playing an act, he's really sticking with it.
And I remember he was like, yeah, he's kind of leaned in. I remember he said, he's kind of leaned in a little bit too much.
Yeah. And he kind of did. I think it's kind of, but at the time he voted for Trump, he did it because he felt this is the right thing to do. Like I'm doing
It
the
was-
right
it
thing
was-
based on
it
all
was
the
the
information I
reason-
have. This is the right thing to do.
It was the reason that a lot of people voted for him. It's the reason a lot of people like myself voted for Bernie.
Sure.
Is that we don't feel like the establishment and the status quo is really representing America.
Right.
And I think for people
two-party
who were,
system.
yeah, and I think people were like tired of getting burned. Like and the problem is like they were just looking for someone to blame, number one. And you could have picked any party. You could have been like, dude, like here's how Bush fucked up the country. You know, like he spent $10 trillion on the war. He fucking didn't do X, Y, and Z. Like you can think of like all these things. Obama, you're like, what did he do? Like drone strikes increased by like 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
He bent over backwards and bailed out the banks, and we didn't literally didn't arrest a single person. So you can like go through, but at the end of the day, like what you're looking at is like the same common themes happen with every president. I always say this, like we spend, no matter who's in office, like they all spend a ton of money. The national deficit grows, and the American people get nothing for it. If anything, all we're doing is spending to fix the mistakes the last guy made. Every single administration. And then the people who aren't in office point the finger at them and be like, look at this. They spent all this money. Here's another thing. Like everyone's like, oh, dude, Trump's tax plan. It's like, well, Biden's rolling out stimuluses. Trump's giving tax breaks. Biden's bailing out the banks. Bush is spending on the war. Clinton reverses the Glass-Steagall Act to allow lending firms to merge with like everyone fucks up every single time. And at the end of the day, like Americans are caught with holding the bag. Always. Doesn't matter who's president, what office is in, who controls Congress, nothing. We never get anything for it. Our healthcare costs increase. Our taxes get worse every year. It's like, there's infrastructure is always shit. Our education's getting worse. There's no childcare services for any single parents. It's like, there is literally like, and that's what I was telling people. I'm like, the reason I backed Bernie is like, I didn't give a shit. People are like, oh, well, how is he going to pay for it? I'm like, how did we pay for anything the last 30 years? Like we literally have just been writing a check that we can't cash.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so why don't we I was like, I want someone to write a check that we can't cash that pays for college tuition, that gets us healthcare. I was like, let's get something
Right.
for
Let's
it.
write that check.
Yeah, right. Like dude, like student loan debt gone, get rid of predatory lending behaviors, get a universal healthcare system just by expanding Medicaid. You literally cut military. You can cut the military spending budget like that too. There's just like so much, like you can do these things and like, we're going to be in the same deficit regardless of whatever that person would have done with the other thing. They probably would have just spent it more on defense anyway. So it's like, that's my thing. I'm like, and I tell this to people all the time, like, look, like, I'm not going to argue with you that like this person spent this or this person bugged out. What I'm trying to tell you is like how nice. And I tell people this all the time who are like educated, wealthy Trump supporters, because they're all in their mind, they're like, I already have healthcare and all this stuff. I'm like, hey, you've got a few kids, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, what if someone told you that they could go to college and it would be covered? I'm like, and those thousands of dollars you're putting away right now, every single month, when they turn 18, goes put right back into your bank account and your kid goes off to school and the kids get paid for. I'm like, you don't want that? Like, you tell me right now, you don't want that. And they're always like, whoa. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's what I'm going for. Like, you should, like, we should all agree on that. Aren't you tired of like your internet service provider just ramming it up your asshole?
I am.
Yeah, you are. Name a single person.
Spectrum.
I don't care what your political affiliation is. You hate Comcast. You absolutely hate
They
Comcast.
have you by the balls.
You hate your ISP provider. Like, why don't we do something about that? It's like, there's like so many ways. There's so many
Sounds
easy
like
ways.
Mr. DHS needs to be Mr. USA.
I know. I was
Dude,
just thinking,
I'm
like,
telling
so
you, I'm like,
Mr.
I'd vote for you,
DHS,
Josh.
if you had $1 million and you could tackle, invest in fixing one social or environmental problem, what would you do first?
$1 million? That would do nothing.
I mean, it's a donation.
I would take a fucking piss on it.
It's a donation. It's not going to solve anything, but where would you put your money?
The entire homeless population $2. That's what I would do with $1 million. 500,000 people.
They all
you
have
get
one
$2.
great morning.
Everyone gets a cup of coffee and a muffin. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Nice.
Free McDonald's.
Free breakfast. Yeah. Well,
You would be a man of the people. I could see you taking that platform.
No,
far.
I mean, if I had to pick like one, it would be healthcare. Like that should be universal. They freely and it's weird. You can actually if you do you look at polling also, like Republicans are the package party. They package everything together, right? Like you're going to hate healthcare because you also hate abortions. You're going to hate healthcare because you're super religious. You hate healthcare because you don't want immigrants in this country. They pack it together. So it's like, you can't a la carte pick what your policies are. You have to support that party.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it. But like, when you look at polling about like, do you want like when people ask people like, hey, do you want this for your healthcare? Do you want to pay this? Do you want like your medication to be covered? It's like 70, 80. The lowest you'll get is like 65% that like support it, that support like universal healthcare. It's like, that is an issue that they've done a really, really good job of packaging. And they scare people with misinformation on that. Like, oh, like, well, if you're in a union, you're not going to get your health insurance. If your employer provides health insurance, you're not going to get it. And it's like, no one ever said that. Like literally all they said was every single person in the country gets this minimum basic coverage. If you already have something that covers it, you get a tax credit to offset those costs. If you don't have any insurance, now you're covered. If you've got insurance through your union, you still get that. We'll give you a tax credit. So they're just like, look, like no matter what, 100% of Americans will get health insurance. And if you have good health insurance, you can keep it. It's like, it wasn't like that hard to identify. And it's just people didn't, but they made people think otherwise. And it's like, that would be my number one thing. I would like pick that. And then from that point on, like people would be happy about that. Like you can go like waiting times to go down. It would be like, it's one of those issues where if it does go one way, the other party won't be able to use like these fear tactics or talking points because the statistics won't match up anymore. Like when marijuana got legalized, crime's going to go up. DUIs are going to go up. Jobs are going to go down. Everyone's going to be smoking weed. All those states, what happened? Jobs went way up to the roof. Crime went down. Hard drug usage went down. Arrests went down. DUIs went down. Police budgets were like able to operate more efficiently. You had there's like a few other things.
Plus just the revenue to the state.
The revenue to the state. Like they made more money.
Education gaps and all sorts of things.
And they're putting in things in the revenue, like these tax dollars from marijuana are going to schools, then education was getting boosted. Right. So it was like, now when you look at every single state that went rec, all of them are like, everything. It's literally been successful in every single state, like hands down. Medical, recreational, and it gets better the more you go. And that's why the industry's like gone wild now, because they can't even hold it back anymore. Like only a few red states can try, but like 10 years, medical in every state minimum. Like that train's left the station. Yeah. If healthcare got to that point, same thing would happen. You wouldn't be able to fight anymore. All your talking points would be gone. Like everyone would be fucking happy.
So it takes. You think a state has to? Broken. What if a state did it to prove it's doable?
It has to be federal. It has to be federal. Okay. Yeah, it has to be federal. Because right now I think like it was like last year 19.5% of our GDP as a country was spent on healthcare. That means post checks, 20% of the money Americans earn got spent back in healthcare, and 50% of the cost is administrative fees because of the insurance and this provider, and then you've got to go to this person, you've got to do that person. Like, I know it's supplying jobs, but it's so fucking wildly inefficient. It's so expensive, and like people are just like, people have to make decisions all the time whether or not they're going to eat food, or if they're going to get like pay for the medication they want, or they're splitting their prescription amongst family members. So it's not even really helping. It's like, there would be like, people would feel that difference. Mm-hmm. Like there's some policies that change where you can see it like on paper, people would actually feel that difference. Mm-hmm. Like knowing that one day you're going from like, you've got to take $600 out of your pocket every month because you're a server to pay for any of either private health insurance, or you pay $8,000 once a year because all of a sudden something strings up, you have no way to pay for it. It's like, you would feel that if like you like got that sickness and normally you're like, oh, here we go, I got to pay all this money. Mm-hmm. And then you go in the hospital and like, oh, the state's going to cover that. Here's your copay for $10. Mm-hmm. You're gonna be like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can get behind that. Yeah. Like, that was a good decision.
Yeah. It's hundreds of dollars a month in people's pockets.
No complaints here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really like the thing. So that would be the first thing I would like fix there is healthcare. You know,
first 100 days, Mr. USA.
First 100 days, but everyone tries it and then it always gets shot down.
Right. And so what is that? Is that the insurance, big insurance, or big pharma trying to shut that down? Like who's benefiting from us not having healthcare?
Yeah, it is absolutely big. So it's that, but it's also everything underneath it. So think about it like this. If there is a major pharmaceutical company or healthcare organization or insurance company, they also have insurance companies that are behind them that are covering their losses and invested in it. You also have that the people who are funding the healthcare system are hedge funds because they can grow it in there. You have university endowments that are funding these things and growing from it. There's like so much people with skin in the healthcare game other than just the healthcare providers.
Got you.
So it's like there's all of this money. And I sell software now that does like to shops that do lobbying, that do government affairs work. And I know like businesses spend a lot of money on this stuff. They hire lobbying firms, they buy our software, they put a ton of money, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this stuff every year to influence lawmakers. They know who to target, they know what it's about, they're putting up PACs to get them elected. Like there's like so much behind it. But again, it's one of those things where it's like if it changed, they would figure something out.
Of course, right.
Like because they're lazy. Like everyone's like, oh no, we're never gonna figure it out. Like, what are we gonna do? And it's like, no, you'll figure like what
right.
the tobacco and alcohol industry are still here.
Mm-hmm.
Weed's
They
legalized.
survived, yeah.
Right.
They figured it out, they missed an opportunity. They probably should have. If you're tobacco, you should have just like leaned into that one. They spent billions of dollars over like decades to like shoot down legalization when they literally were sitting on production, marketing, distribution,
right.
like manpower. Like, yo, you should have just like no, let's just like
pivot a little bit.
Let's put weed in. Let's put weed in cigarettes.
Right.
Let's sell that. Like,
right.
What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
How did they miss
weed
that?
and nicotine. They could have had it.
Right.
They could have had it.
You're like, like, dude, you don't even like. You can sell a product that technically now you can actually market that isn't addictive. They're like, look, it's not addictive. You just fucking love it.
Right. right.
And
nobody ever even needed
hungry.
a commercial to sell weed. I guess there's billboards,
right?
But.
Like who fucks that up? All like, and there was like 9 of those companies too. Not a single person caught of that. Come on.
I bet people were pushing for it, but yeah,
opportunity.
the old ways kind of prevailed. I have a question. Go ahead.
When I was gonna say, I knew like tobacco that's kind of the thing. They're like, we've always been tobacco. It's been in the family for 7 generations. We're a tobacco family.
Right.
We toast it.
What do you want me to change my name? I'm John William Tobacco.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, since you're very informed and very pragmatic, I guess. With you, what do you like about Donald Trump? What did he do right? What does he get in his accomplishments? Because I don't know them.
That's a great question. I think he actually, I was talking about this with someone the other day. He did it like, honestly, the idea of like changing some of the trade deals was pretty smart. Some of the things behind it, because they were really old, like they were really outdated. So a lot of that was good. And there was one other thing I talked to with someone the other day about this. God, what was it? I want to say it was around oil and energy. So he really protected Democrats from raising the gas tax. It's a big thing right now. They're talking about like how to pay for the infrastructure bill. And a lot of Democrats are like, let's raise the gas tax because we haven't raised it since 1990. And you're like, oh, well, that's a smart idea. Like, let's do that. Let's raise the gas tax. We'll earn a little extra money. Gas prices might go up a little bit, not the end of the world, this and that. However, the problem is what you're going to be doing is like really ripping into the pockets of those oil companies and gas companies, which is, again, you're like, oh, that's not a bad idea. Like, fuck those companies. They're terrible and this and that. However, all of them are actually the ones who are funding a lot of these new green projects in all these various states. They all have to be super sustainable. They have to be environmentally friendly. They have all these new rules and regulations they have to follow. And they're the ones taking their money from the oil and gas and starting to diversify, because they're not going to give up oil today. They're not just going to overnight, like, we're not producing oil anymore. That's completely unrealistic. Mm-hmm. But they are starting to diversify and investing in just different sustainable projects. And if you were to raise the gas tax on them, all that money, gone.
Right. That's just what they'll cut. They'll just cut all their green initiatives. They'll cut all that out. You kidding me? They'll lean into what they're making the money, and they'll be like, all your new projects. We're not going to do that. Right.
So I thought like that, protecting that, I thought was like, it was actually kind of smart. And it's funny because then, and this is the one thing like Democrats don't need to do, or like left media doesn't need to do, is like, dude, you can just literally tell the truth just as objectively as you want. And it's like, that's all you need. But putting your spin on it, omitting facts, like hiding this information, right. you don't need to play these games. All you're going to do is like have smart people figure out like what you're doing. And then then they're going to think everything you say is bullshit.
Right, exactly.
And you're giving these people the ability to be like, you're lying. Now I won't believe the 9 other true things you're saying because this one thing you're saying is false. And I'm like, you literally don't need to do that. And you don't need to like, I guess you don't need to use like clickbait headlines, but every media company technically does if they're trying to make money. But then they're like, you're giving people ammo. You're like, you're not going to believe what Donald Trump did next. You're like, ate for breakfast. I'm like, you don't need to do that.
Right.
Just like literally talk about how he's like making it impossible for people to apply for asylum in this country, even when they're trying to like immigrate here legally. It's like that's literally all you need to say.
Sure.
Yeah,
there was so much noise.
Sensationalized headline about it. Just let me just take the facts with my little fantasy baseball coffee combo. You know, I just want the facts.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's like, and like I know a lot of what he did with like reworking NAFTA was pretty good. So that was big. There's a few things he did that were like, okay, but honestly, like the majority of what that guy did was shit. And just his overall demeanor, like he lowered the bar. He lowered the bar for what it means to be like a leader in this country by like 100%. A pretty wide margin.
That hurt.
Sure.
Every day was painful. Like every day waiting to see what dumb, offensive, horrible thing he was going to say or do. Was pretty
he opened the door for unqualified popular people to win presidencies, because back in the day, like there used to always be every now and then a person who was like popular or famous that would run for office, and they would just get creamed because everyone was like, dude, like you're not fit for the job, you have no experience, you don't understand what you're saying, you're not close to the policy or issues. And he said he made it to the point where it's like, well, you don't need any of that anymore.
Right.
You just need a fucking Twitter account and a huge ego.
Just shoot from the hip.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, that's different. That's what we need. And it's like, that's literally, that's like not what we need.
Right.
So,
the shake-up candidate. I just want to shake it all up.
Bernie was a shake-up candidate too.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of the same attitude, but Bernie had the experience and the demeanor was much more on point with Bernie.
Yeah.
He was like the better Trump.
And the thing people like Bernie, like Bernie, you know, like at the end of the day, like I'm probably, I'd say I'd lean towards socialism, I believe more in like social welfare economy, not direct, like complete redistribution of wealth. You know, I still think I'm, for example, I'm a socialist who thinks it's okay for there to be billionaires. Sure. So as long as like there, cause then like there is some truth and extent to like, you need competition to drive innovation. Otherwise, like a good example would be like a Russia, where like they're kind of a lot of things from there, like some of their like technology and science and things have fallen behind. Like look at the Sputnik vaccine. They're like, no, we're going to do it all our way. And it's like, they're having like a lot of problems with it. You know, like that's where like we allowed to like use the global economy to like drive innovation. We were like, look, we're going to give 4 contracts out. Whoever gets to market first is going to make the most money. And then all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, I'm going to make the best fucking vaccine ever. Like you fucking wait and see. Like you need that to some extent.
Sure.
So I believe like there could be billionaires. I just feel like we should have certain tax rules in place and things like that. And ideally would like more idealists, like true believers, for billionaires, and not like your Elon Musks and whatever you have today.
What do you mean
what do you mean by that?
Here, I'll look up his name.
I was thinking.
So okay,
Elon
this is
Musk
the guy
was
I can never remember. Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney is the guy you want to look up. Chuck Feeney was worth like $8 billion, and then at the peak of his money, decided he wanted to like die broke. He wanted to go like give everything up. I can't remember. He was the guy who started the duty free thing. You know, duty free at the airports, duty free like selling.
Yeah.
He made billions doing that.
Wow.
And then when he got to a certain age, he was like, you know what? Like he literally liquidated all of his assets and donated all the piecemeal to charity. And he's like 90 years old now, and I think he's worth like $800,000.
Amazing. And
it's like that is a person who like that was what I like to see. You know, not like a guy who's like, oh, I'm worth like $50 billion. I'm going to go build a rocket ship and like go to space. You know,
the edge of space. He didn't even get to space.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about Elon Musk wanted to like take people to Mars and stuff? Is there some kind of merit in that, or is that still just an ego jerk?
No, that's an ego jerk, because at the end of the day, like we're literally living on like a planet that's tailor made for our like existence. Like we were literally developed and formed on this planet. Like you can literally take that same exact amount of money and put it into this planet. And and like instead of like trying to build a new one.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to build a new one so that when history is rewritten on another planet, you're the name that everyone's like, Elon Musk is our messiah. It's like it's a messiah complex. All these guys have a messiah complex.
For sure.
They're not doing it for the sake of humanity. They're doing it so humanity remembers their name, and they're keeping humanity alive so that they can remember their name and speak their name. It's like all ego. But like the people who are like, look, I'm going to die broke and give away my billions of dollars because I want to help the world. Like that's that's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I feel that. I know Bezos's ex-wife too just keeps making him look worse and worse because she keeps giving away like so much money.
Yeah, she gave away a few billion, and then like the Mexican Art Museum here in Chicago got their largest donation ever from that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and like Bill and Melinda Gates give a lot away. Like Bill and Melinda Gates are the two biggest philanthropists in the history of the world.
See, that is so funny to me because the Gateses, how did they become like public enemy number one to the Republican Party?
Friends with Jeff Epstein. I mean, he's a big Epstein.
Yeah, that was.
Is that's the tie that did him in?
So
people always had conspiracies about him.
Yeah, and when the Epstein thing came out, his wife hired a voice lawyer that week and like started the process that week. So it was like the timing of it was like the optics were maybe just really bad, but also like maybe there was some validity to it. Because that also was probably the most partisan execution I've ever seen my entire life.
What,
you know,
Epstein
like,
and anyone involved in Epstein?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Are you kidding me? Like there was like literally like the names were like the most powerful people on both sides of political spectrums in business. And when that guy died, everyone was like, eh. Because it was like every person and their mother was like, we need this guy to die.
Yeah. It's so
like I'm like, hey, Democrats, Republicans were like, this guy's dying.
Yeah, he's going down.
You know? So, but yeah, I would say, I don't even know how I got to this part of this conversation, but
well, just when did the tide turn for Bill Gates when he became like the enemy of, was it this Epstein thing? I feel like there were conspiracies about him kind of always, but just kind of like,
it just feels like it's
conspiracies
so
in general used to feel like more fringe, more just kind of kooky out there ideas people would have.
People started getting mad at him when like, because he was one of the first people that like really get caught like acquiring and selling data, I think. Because that was a big thing. Like, you know, now you actually have like anti-vaxxers who think Bill Gates is like trying to put like microchips in
right, the trackers in them.
Like,
it's like,
now I'm magnetic. Like spoons will stick to you.
Well, and people naturally want to eat the rich. That's like pretty normal. The reason you've never heard of Chuck Feeney probably is because he didn't generate enough bad press. You know? Like
sometimes you got to do something stupid to get it. You know, you got to catch a foul ball before you just got to get your name out there. You know.
But Feeney played it close. He played it.
But also, like when I talked about like when you're like the left media and you're like on the left side, like if you're liberal and you're wanting to be like, when people like use arguments against billionaires, they use the wrong arguments. Like they're like, oh, Jeff Bezos made $20 trillion, this like $20 billion just in the last month. And you're like, he didn't actually make $20 billion. Like $20 million didn't just show up in his bank account tax free. Like that's his net worth from the shares of the company, the value of his company. Like he would have to sell the company to like recognize that revenue. So I'm like, you can't tax anything. You're taxing like you can't. It's just like you can't take that money from him. He doesn't technically have it in his bank account. He might have some. He might find ways to build revenue somewhere else. But like when people are like, oh, let's take the risk. We could pay for this and pay for that. I'm like, yeah, we could pay for it. When they decide to cash out when they're dead 50 years from now, it doesn't do us any good today. Like does nothing. Like what you could do is you could tax trading. You could tax Wall Street. That's what like you could do. Like that's what Bernie wants to do. So Bernie's like, oh, if you're going to execute a trade or if your company is going to go up a certain value in the year, we're going to take money off of that. You're going to have to pay some of that out in cash and figure out how to do it. And that's like what he wants. And that's what scares everybody about Bernie. That's why he's like public enemy number one. Because he's like, I want to tax the rich in ways that like they're using to hide their money.
Actually feel.
Yeah. And then they're like, no, that guy, dude, that guy's a socialist. You should hate him. You know, that guy wants to make this more expensive.
Yeah. Don't you know?
Right. He wants you to pay 90%
come here
taxes.
for medical procedures, you know?
Yeah. What do you think? You want to get rid of your Amazon Prime? You're going to have to start paying for your deliveries, you know, even though that would only happen when we get rid of the post office, you know, like that. Yeah. That's the ironic thing.
True.
Man, people, we're so people-y.
We sure are.
But I don't always love it. Most of the time, I like us as humanity.
I mean, we're doing
but-
our best. I think we're better than we've ever been, which is hard to recognize, but I think it's true. At least if you zoom out and look at us in terms of like the 5,000 years we've been, like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
The fact that society functions in any way is a miracle. That it's not just complete chaos outside is a miracle.
There's just a lot of good people, and there's also a lot of smart good people. So like for as many times as we talk about like people gaming the system or manipulating people to do things, there are people that are figuring out ways around that.
There's chucks
like
out there.
There's not only that, there's just like, and there's people like who are like learning how to like effectively influence politics at like the local level and build it up, and you're just seeing it. There's like just good work being done out there. And eventually like there will always be progress. There will always be things that step us back, but I think there's enough good people out there that we can keep fighting and still making some places better. You look at Georgia with all the elections and how they changed that. That was a lot of grassroots work.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex and I and my wife were just talking about the other day, like a lot of people, when we talk about arguments, like, oh, you're from the South, that place is a redneck, or these people are dumb and stuff like that. It's like, that's a really I've stopped doing that a long time ago. Because what I was realizing, I was perpetuating these stereotypes. But when you look at all the big change that's happened in this country in the last 40, 50 years, it's all come from the South. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement happened in the South. You look at these Georgia elections and overturning states, that's in the South. Arizona flipped blue, that's in the South. Like, that's where really change is happening. That's where all the hard work is really being done.
Arizona counts as the South.
But
it's
on the southern border.
It's the Southwest.
Southwest.
No, but I feel it is an unfair prejudice that Southerners get, even just like the accent. That's like, if you want to sound dumb, you do this accent. And it's kind of, it's kind of
old. It's old news.
But
it's prejudice.
But you're letting people just be like, look, okay, that's who we are, then that's who we are. But you can be like, no, you're more than that. Mm-hmm. You just look at all the best, everyone who's really induced change in this country and really advocated, a lot of them came from the South. And it's kind of nice. So it gives you hope that and I think a lot of it is I've been trying to be really conscious about some of the things that I'm saying now and doing. And it's not being woke. It's just being more what am I perpetuating that's negative? And what am I perpetuating that's positive? And just being really thoughtful about that. Mm-hmm. So it's hard, it's hard, but it's if we start doing it more and more, if you and I also am now as I'm getting older, being less afraid to interject when a friend says something. Cause sometimes when your friend says something wrong, we're hey man, that's gay or something. Some of you people are oh, that's just so-and-so and that's who they are. It's no, you should actually speak up hey,
right.
You shouldn't use that word. That's not okay anymore. Even if it's just you and your friends in a room, you should never do that.
Yeah.
You should really think about that and change it. If you just people just do that more with each other, it'll work. There's still hope. Mm-hmm. Still some hope in this country. Mm-hmm. And Bernie's still around. We still got Bern, so feel good about that.
Still got the
It
Bern.
hasn't all crashed.
But we need a young Bern. Where's the 42-year-old Bernie Sanders who's ready to really buckle down?
Well, I mean, it's a 32-year-old Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, So
does she align pretty much right with Bernie? Or she's different?
Oh yeah, they do pretty much everything together now. They're always backing each other up.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
maybe
and Representative Bush. Yeah.
Oh my
and
God,
Representative Bush who made sure that Representative Bush who made sure that Congress extended the moratorium for evictions. Because what I found out literally 2 weeks ago is that she was homeless. She was homeless for a number of times. She was sleeping on park benches. So she's look, I've been there before. Mm-hmm. I've been homeless. I know how scary it is.
So awesome.
I will sleep on the steps of the Capitol till this gets done. So it's we need people like that. We need people who weren't silver spooned, who actually lived these experiences in office, who can share that with people. Bernie didn't necessarily grow up when you look at his history, he didn't grow up poor or this or that. But if you look all the way back in the day, he's always been fighting for those people right alongside.
He's put in the work to validate it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he won his first election as mayor in 1980 by 8 votes or something. For hilarious.
Amazing.
He literally political career almost ended. He a Dr. Seuss type story. Mm-hmm. It was right at the end where it wasn't going to happen, and then he got one break, and then everything changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so wild. I'm glad you stay optimistic, even though you're in the crossfires. You're always putting yourself out there for those conversations. And if you're still positive, that gives me hope, because I get really frustrated, as I'm sure you do from time to time too. But
All the time.
It's
it is frustrating. It's frustrating, and like the frustrating part is feeling powerless. Like, yeah, I can sit here and like make a million posts on Instagram about like this and that, and like 160 people see it. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really like, I'm not doing anything either. Like, I'm technically a keyboard warrior, right? Like, so, but like now I'm like, part of the reason I took the job I took now is because now I'm like closer to politics again.
Mm-hmm.
My company's like in DC. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm connecting with people, having these conversations. I'm learning a lot more about issues and like the inner workings of like how government affairs works. And now I'm like, maybe at some point in the next 20 years, I've always hated the thought of going into US politics, like being involved in doing something. But then I look at other people and I'm like, look, like this person was a waitress like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're a congressional rep. Like, there could be a moment in my life where I'm like, look, like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and do something. I'm going to change. And I'm like, and I think the more I acquire, like the more I keep my heart in it, the more I learn, the better I get. Like, I think if I just like, maybe one day I'll like make the switch and just go for it. And if it works out, then maybe I can like make bigger change.
Well, look,
so for
man,
now, I'm just kind of staying as close as I can to the ground, you know?
yeah.
You get on stage at that rally and you do that Thriller dance, bro. It's in the bag. All right,
like,
it's
everybody's going to be
tried
casting
and
their
true.
votes for you.
It's worked before. It'll work again. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey,
you
bro.
got my vote, man. I would love to see you get. That was going to be my next question. Like, do you ever plan to run for politics or anything? Because it sounds like
I would like, if I did, I would need to be able to find a way to generate money without giving up on anything, without giving something up. You know what I
Right,
mean?
that
That's
is
the
tough.
hardest part.
yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, in order to do that, you like really have to take a huge risk, or you have to start at a young age. You know, like I'm up 30, I'm gonna be 35 this year. So it's like, maybe that clock's like a little been ticking for a while,
Yeah, you're young.
but part of my strategy is like, I would run on issues that I would run on very centered issues that I think everyone can agree on as my core platform. And then after I get elected, expand like what I'm really trying to do. Like when I talked earlier about ISPs, you know, like I would run on that message. Last year, I would have ran hard on robocalls, right? Like those are easy wins. 30% of calls to Americans last year were robocalls. How many do you get of those a week?
Oh, a bazillion.
Wow.
Right?
Depends on what I'm searching for that week. How many calls I get.
How many politicians did you hear say that they would do something about it? Zero. How many
Zero.
people do you think would resonate with that, would fuck with that?
Right.
A lot of them. I'd be like, yeah, that guy wants to get a robocalls and get me free weed and healthcare. Like, that's my guy, you know? And that guy I tell you he's going to take down Comcast next week and like lower my
Once again, you
bill,
unlimited access to all
Yeah.
the sporting channels and keep your costs
That guy-
the same with Comcast.
guy-
I love this
that
guy.
guy- dude, and it's so funny because like South Korea has no, like, they have like no antitrust with their internet service provider. So South Koreans have internet that are like twice as fast as us, and they pay like nothing. They're like, it's like free, it's like government sponsored.
Wow.
Yeah, we could do
'Cause,
better,
like,
America. Come on.
We could.
It's literally it. It's literally cable lines. That's what you're paying for. Is they already laid them. So now they can, like, the fact that they're charging you all this money is literally just an insult.
It's ridiculous.
That's why
Salt in the
Google,
wounds.
you know, Google Fiber, right? Google Fiber was trying to go into different neighborhoods, and that if you were in a Google Fiber neighborhood, they covered the entire cost 100%, because all they had to do was initially pay the amount for the infrastructure, and the maintenance is minimal. And then you got 1,000 terabits a second, which is like 20 times faster than any normal high-speed internet. And it was like all in your neighborhood for free. Why? Because again, all it was is the infrastructure to put down. And then after that, it wasn't much to maintain it at all. And we could technically do that, but all these ISPs locally are like making certain rules about who can compete in their neighborhood. There can only be 2 providers in this area. And then they literally make it so that no one else can actually enter the game and throw their hat in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
No small company, no local mom and pop
I
shop
believe
business.
that's called a
No, like,
monopoly.
it is, but it's not a monopoly because technically there's so many different providers, but there's not one provider. But they're just making rules that there can only be 2 people in the ring, and then they just split the pie. And then they agree with each other that they're not going to actually compete with each other's prices. They're actually going to racketeer it. But again, it's not monopoly because it's not happening on a national scale. It's just they isolate it individually. It's a fucking dirty trick, and they're screwing
Isolated
Americans.
monopolies.
And they're screwing Americans, and I'm going to run on that platform, and everyone's going to get down with it. You know?
Boom. We'll get your little canvas shoes in the museum, okay? You can go door
One
to
day.
door.
One day, I'm going to say
Grassroots hard.
dare. Drug.
Yeah.
You keep
Dare.
dare to
Drug
dream,
abuse.
okay?
You get up there in a Dare shirt, people will vote for you just for that. It's like, this guy, he's one of us. Like, he's us.
I'd be like, I don't do drugs. I just smoke weed. You know?
And I want you to smoke weed too.
That's it.
If you want to,
Shit.
without the government. Well, hey, dude. Oh, this was kind of a long podcast, dude. This was so great, man. Thank you for talking with us.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. A lot of fun. Do it again anytime you need somebody. You know, if you want
Hey,
to
We'd love to have you
Thank
back.
you.
Absolutely.
dead airspace, you know.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that. Might take you up on that.
Yeah, we just
Definitely.
we
Yeah.
certainly will someday. Absolutely.
yeah.
Would love to have you back.
I had a blast. I'll tell you what, when I run one day, you can just give me a little free advertising time.
You got
Oh,
it.
dude,
You know.
you got it.
You got it. We'll even make clips for you. We'll get you
Yeah.
some support.
We'll hook it up. We'll
We'll be
Yeah.
huge by then. But yeah, hopefully next time. I would love to see you in Chicago sometime. Meet Alex, maybe see Alizar, all the fun stuff. Just catch up. So
Yeah. Hit me up when you guys are in town. We'll do it big. And then I'll let you know when I'm out in LA because I
Yeah,
love
please.
that town. So
Hell yeah.
yes, definitely. Please do. Well, cool. Yeah, thanks, man.
All
It
right.
was so
All
fun
right.
catching up.
Josh Weiss, everybody.
yeah,
Mr. DHS,
Mr. DHS,
everybody.
soon to be Mr. USA.
America. Oh, wait. Oh,
appreciate
shit.
it. Appreciate it.
Well, you can't
Mr.
say Mr.
USA.
America?
Is he not?